In this video, we're going to be going over 10 heroes to main in the mid-season 9 patch, characters that are performing really well, line up really well with or against the meta, and has great potential if you want to climb this second half of the season. But press that subscribe button right now, or I'm going to call up Blizzard and have them reinstate Roadhog's one shot. So anyways, let's get into the video. Now, first off, we do got to talk about Malga. I think this is really important to state at the beginning because he has meta implications for the rest of the roster. Malga is really strong right now. He's taking over the meta even in the higher ranks, and for a character like Malga, if he's meta in the higher ranks, he'll be completely dominant in the majority of ranks. Malga is super strong in the tank v tank matchup. He's really hard to interact with a lot of different characters, so it's a good idea to have a plan if you're going to go up against a Malga. And if you're trying to pick a character in the tanking role, Malga is just really free wins a lot of the time. There are so many characters that can't beat a Malga in the tank mirror, whether it's Rhine, whether it's Winston, Roadhog. There's a lot of characters that they can do nothing to you if you lock the Malga. This character is freaking nuts right now, and definitely a character you should consider picking up temporarily until he gets nerfed, inevitably, probably in Season 10. Now, the next character that we do got to talk about is Ekko. And Ekko has been really good this entire season and is still very good even after the mid-season patch. Ekko just combats the game in a much different way than most characters. Being able to play whatever angle that she wants to play in, being able to have consistent poke, and the ability to burst down characters no matter really what their HP is. She's the character that is least affected by breakpoints when people have the massive health increases that they got in Season 9. Because you get them close to half, you beam them down, it's going to be able to kill so many squishies, and Ekko gets to play a dive variation really well in the poke, and specifically because her ultimate is so powerful, it's okay to play really passive, try to build up that ultimate, and then you get to go for an ultimate play that has real impact. But my tip for you for Ekko is try to not copy tanks because you're just not going to live. Your health total is not big enough to take in enough damage to kind of cycle your cooldown, cycle through your ultimates. I think there's a couple that you could maybe get away with, maybe a Zarya here and there, maybe a Diva, but really characters that have immediate value and that are going to stay alive are fantastic. So supports, characters like Kiriko, teleport Suzu, you're going to be able to stay alive, you're going to be able to get instant value. Certain characters that can enable your play, so like let's say you're going in after one person, you kill them, someone's going to trade you out like a DPS, you copy them and then you win that duel, and you can kind of snowball a play with ult as well, and that's just kind of doing it for tempo. It doesn't really matter what you copy in that regard. So there's other ways to use your ultimate to make sure that you get value with it, but try not to just walk into a fight when everyone has all their cooldowns, everyone's full health, you copy a tank and then you just instantly die. You're just going to be losing a lot of fights based off that. It's one of the most powerful ultimates in the game if you use it correctly, so make sure that you're thinking a lot about it before you pop it. Now, the next hero that we do got to talk about is Baptiste, and Baptiste hasn't really been that great in the first part of Season 9, but after the mid-season patch with pretty substantial changes to the meta, Baptiste is fitting in a ton better. This is mainly because characters like Malga and Orisa are really performing very well right now, and Baptiste are going to enable them amazingly. And also, Baptiste is just generally a character that I think is underpicked across most ranks. He's just one of the best damage dealers consistently, very good at dueling, has impactful abilities that can bail people out with his immortality, and has crazy high burst healing. There's a lot of things about Bap that is really strong. Plus, he has a very fast building ultimate, and I think something that you can do to snowball a lot of team fights is get a Bap ult and use it quickly, because you're combining damage and healing in conjunction. You're building up a ton of ultimate very quickly, and then you can just use your ultimate when someone's out of position, even just one person, kill them immediately, and then all of a sudden you get to snowball an entire fight. And if Baptiste can snowball a fight over and over again, you're gonna win a game just off the back of tempo ulting and being the first to ult in a lot of these team fights where everyone's getting close to that 70-80%. You get your ult first, you win the fight off of it, and then the next fight you're already building up your ultimate and your economy is already in your favor. Really great character, and I would highly suggest picking him up this mid-season. Now, the next character that we do got to talk about is actually Widowmaker, which might surprise you, but Widowmaker is doing fairly well right now. And there's a lot of various reasons for it. Widow has actually been performing pretty well at the start of the season, but Dive and Wrecking Ball and characters like that did kind of shut her down on a multitude of different maps. But right now, when there's Sigmas being played, Malgas, and Orisas, these characters can't really interact with the Widow all that much. Sigma can to an extent, but especially not Malga and Orisa. It's not like they're going to be able to go hunt you down if you're playing a far enough angle, and you can get so much value because there's these characters that are kind of playing around and with their team that if you take an off angle, you can actually get some really easy value. And I think that Widow is a character that is better this season than she's been in quite some time. She definitely has a lot of potential. The only real downside to her, I think, right now is the fact that Sombra is also particularly good, and Sombra is definitely a really hard character to play against. So I do think that Widow can be a really great character, and on some maps you could dominate. I wouldn't necessarily make her your one trick or your true main, maybe a character you flex to or a character you play when you can, but you're quick to swap off her when people start to counter you so that you don't get farmed for multiple fights in a row, not getting any value. Now, the next character that we do get to talk about is Orisa, and Orisa is taking over the tanking meta in a lot of ways. She's pretty good against Malga because in the head-to-head, she doesn't just straight up lose. She has ways to mitigate damage, and then when Malga is not running forward, Orisa can skewer the Malga back and create some space and some distance. In addition to that, with some of the buffs to Orisa, Orisa's just pound for pound a little bit better with her ultimate, and overall, Orisa has always been really good at denying enemy tanks. And right now, the tanks that are good are tanks that can deny or can't be denied, or both, right? And Orisa is a character that can deny and can't be denied. That's why she's so good. And I do think that she's a bit harder to counter than Malga is, even if Malga might be a little bit more powerful up against the characters he's good against. Like, Orisa doesn't bully those characters nearly as much as Malga does, but if we kind of devolve the meta down, Orisa has the least bad matchups, is the hardest to get countered by other characters, versus there are some key weaknesses to Malga, characters like Sombra and other characters that shut him down a lot more. So Orisa is the harder to counter but weaker in power level character. As much as I dislike Malga and Orisa metas, I have to be honest with you about what is working and what is strong right now. And if these characters are strongest at the highest ranks of play, once again, they're going to be absolutely freaking dominant in the majority of ranks. And Orisa is just going to take over every lobby that she's in. So, yeah, I would be playing one of these two tanks the majority of the time if you're trying to win, unfortunately. Now, the next character that we do get to talk about is Bastion. And Bastion is a character that actually plays into the meta fairly well. He was actually doing pretty well in Season 9. He's a character that overall has a better neutral now with the DPS passive, and then has great potential to just shut down characters with huge amount of burst with his turret, and he's super tanky. And while he still doesn't play or interact very well with Orisa, he's great against Malga, phenomenal against Malga, and I think you could pick your battles against Orisa and still get some value. He also plays particularly well with characters like Orisa, like Baptiste. So overall, I think Bastion kind of slots into the meta in an interesting way where he is going to be able to get a lot of free and cheeky value. Yes, he's able to get countered, as is most things, but you're going to be able to win quite a few fights with him. He's a great character to swap to when you're walking to a fight with no ultimate. Like, let's say you're walking to a fight, you just use your ultimate pre-fight. You don't want to walk out as a character like Soldier or something that might not be able to get instant value in a very important to win fight. Bastion can. He's really strong just with his raw abilities. He can turn a fight when people aren't expecting him, and I think he's a fantastic character to have in your back pocket to whip out in certain situations. So yeah, definitely lock some Bastion here and there. The next character that I definitely got to talk about is Zen, and Zen is starting to become better in some ways and worse than others. Like, Zen was really good in the dive metas because at the very beginning he was super beefy, so we could actually operate under like Lucio Zen metas with Wrecking Ball. Then after his HP got nerfed, we still saw Zen, but we saw him with a little bit of different compositions around him often. Sometimes still the Zen Lucio, but he would typically get paired with something like a Brig or something that could keep him alive a little bit easier. But now, while he's not aiding a dive, he is able to help win the poke mirror. Like, when you're in a Malga v Malga, Zen completely changes that entire fight. When you're in an Orisa v Orisa, Zen completely changes that entire fight. And this is one of the reasons why, even when we're seeing some of these tanks in high-level play, we're still seeing Tracers. We're still seeing characters that can keep Zens in check. Because if you never pressure a Zen, you're just going to lose the tank mirror. Like, you just straight up lose it. If you are walking into a poke mirror, and everyone's playing poke, but your team has a Zen, good freaking luck to the enemy. Like, it's just wraps. And Zen is still that strong. He can still carry games. He still has huge fragging potential, and I think that's super vital right now in the entirety of Season 9. helps change breakpoints, helps focus fire, really good at bullying the one tank, and that will always be the case as long as we're in 5v5. And Zen is just an amazing character to play and just know how to play. There are going to be times when you're going to be hard counter. There are going to be times when there's multiple swaps to go against you, and that's fine. You don't have to just stick with Zen no matter what, but the harder you make it for people to counter you and the more value you get in spite of counters, the more they have to like overcommit into dealing with you, putting them off their normal mains, and then you can always swap when you want to. So yeah, Zen, fantastic. Definitely play him, definitely learn him, an amazing character. Now, speaking of Zen, let's talk about one of his counters, Sombra. Sombra's just really good right now. She's really good at a lot of the things that are seeing play, and she attacks the meta in an interesting way. So she's really good against Malga. You can hack the Malga, focus the Malga, start constantly applying the DPS passes to the Malga. Sombra's actually good in dives, good at pressuring support. EMP is still very, very strong. And even though I think Sombra is pretty good in like the direct mirror, especially like up against Malga, she's just generally good. She's also just a character that can enable an anti-meta strategy, like a dive. You're playing a straight-up dive with whatever dive character it is. It could be like a Hammond, it could be a Diva, it could be even a Doom, whatever it is. Sombra can enable that with a hack and an engage combo with their team. I think Sombra is one of the best characters to kind of allow that to work, because you can combine a hack with a dive and just vaporize the support before they get a chance to utilize the utility. And then EMP is just a great way to win fights outright. So yeah, Sombra all around, pretty good in the meta, good in the direct mirror, good at the anti-meta strategy. I think just a great pick overall, and something that Tracer players, Widow players, a lot of different mains of other characters can add to their hero pool as a character to swap to. When people want to counter you, you counter them right back. And the next character that we do got to talk about is Moira. And I do think that Moira was actually a little bit better in Season 9 at the start than she is right now, but still very, very strong. And even though that she can't really interact very well against Malga and Orisa, she's really good at aiding her DPS, dive DPS, to deal with the backlines. She's really good at bullying a lot of characters individually in the 1v1 and punishing DPS for being out of position, which they are quite a bit. I really do think that one of the best ways to punish Moiras is like really high level tracers, and most of the time in most games, even like Masters ranked games, Moiras get away with anything they want to. They don't get hunted, they don't get targeted. Because of the great mobility, they get to just fight on their own terms, and they get to punish things on their own terms. And I really do think that Moira is one of those characters that is severely underplayed in most ranks. Just can get you so many free wins and so much free value. High damage, high kills, low deaths. You're going to swing team fights completely by yourself. You're going to be able to sometimes 1v1, 1v2, 1v3 people. I mean, Moira is just an amazing character. Really, really strong. And also, Moira's a great character to pick when you're playing a brawl or a dive, and there's a lot of tanks that are going to lock whatever they want to play, whether it's a dive tank, whether it's a Junker Queen. You're going to be able to synergize with that really well, and I think it's a great character to have as your mobile support, because I think almost every support player should have something that can play in and with the dive, whether that's Kirka, Lucio, Moira, whatever the case may be, because on a lot of these Flashpoint maps, you're going to get spawn camped. You're not going to be able to rotate with your team. You're not going to be able to engage with your team. You need something to swap to that you're semi-comfortable with. Now, last but certainly not least, we have Ashe, and Ashe is just a really good character in the attrition mirror, the poke mirror, whittling down the enemy's resources, dynamiting, adding pressure, bursting down a lot of characters, can interact with an Ekko. There's a lot about Ashe that I think is really good, and she's good against the most amount of characters where she has the least amount of counters. She really is only super weak against potentially a dive, but I don't think that she has no play. You just have to position a little bit safer. If I were to give an honorable mention, you could slot Sojourn around the same placement as Ashe. I think both of them are very good for slightly different reasons. Sojourn can build up a rail really easily off like Malga and then rail backlines. Ashe can attrition down the resources of the supports a little bit better. So I think that they're both good at different things. Ashe is probably better at the multitude of ranks, but if you're really hitting all your crits, then Sojourn becomes more competitive. But overall, these characters that are good at poking and good and versatile in the threats they could deal with are characters that are always going to be viable, and they're definitely really viable in this mid-season patch. But anyways, this is my 10 for heroes that you should main. Definitely let me know if you think I missed any in the comments down below, and make sure to smash the subscribe button, or I'm calling out Blizzard, and I'm turning the game into a 4v4. We're deleting the support, all right? Anyways, catch y'all later.